I'm going to look at how to build a studio flat today, some of the basic elements that go into it. Flats are really helpful when you're trying to improve your studio photography. They allow you to do more elevated content, better set design. It's not just shooting into a corner or shooting against a polyboard or obviously shooting against like the classic paper background Colorama. I think I really noticed like my studio photography really improved when I got the elements of set design to come together. And this is really simple and easy and basic to do. You don't really need like woodworking skills as such. I'm just going to show you how I do it. These are kind of simple constructions. It's not about creating a really big set that you'll suspend loads of weight off, although I will talk about that briefly. But hopefully it's just useful for anyone that wants to up their game a little bit in the studio or wants to bring someone in to kind of make some flats for them. If you want to look up like Hollywood flats or theater flats, and there's different ways of constructing them. But this is just the basic of what I do. So I'm going to run through what I'm seeing on screen now. So I'm going to show you, I think, 4 different types here. The first one that we're looking at the back of right now is for a fabric loaded flat, but you could also put plywood on the front of it, like a thin plywood. And the main elements of this, we've got a cross piece, we've got 4 corner pieces, and then we've got some kind of stand or base for it. And like I said, the main covering would be a fabric covering. So the cross piece here, I've offset that against the frame a little bit so you can hold it, you can get your hand behind it. I'll zoom in so we can kind of see what that is. Okay, so you can see like there's space here to put your hand behind it so you can pick the whole frame up like this. These flats are really lightweight, so you can just pick it up on your own. And this is like pine or some kind of cheap timber basically that you want for that. Pine will probably be the cheapest. It doesn't need to be like planed or anything, it can just be rough. Although obviously if it's rough, you've got to be careful that you don't get splinters. And then we've got 4 corner pieces here. These corner pieces are just really to keep the shape and the form, and it's more about stability. You don't have to have them if you're not putting anything super heavy on it, but it's useful. And then you can see the pieces coming off for the base. I normally put like a tub of paint or a weight bag or something over that base piece to stop the flat tipping. It should be able to stand up on its own, but you always want to weight something for safety. The heavier the flat gets, the more secure you want it to be, so maybe you'll have runners or ties off of it. But yeah, this is about a stretched fabric. This is normally like an 8x4. I'll put the millimeter measurements up at the end also. Depending on where you live, like I think the best thing to do with flats is always to just build the flat to the basic standard of the plyboard that you're going to be using. So like an 8x4 is fairly standard. Same as like your polyboards would be. Or I think it's like 2440 and then 1220 in millimeters, 2.4 meters by 1.2 meters, roughly. And you can see the edge on this. So the fabric could either go right to the edge or it could wrap round over the piece of the frame. So you could like staple it. Depends like what you want to do with that, or if you're putting loads of pieces of set up together, or if it's a single board. Again, you figure out your own ways of doing these things. And the centerpiece and the corner pieces, they should all be from the same size piece of wood. So like if you were to get like 3 of the verticals, basically you should be able to get your centerpiece and then your corner pieces out of that 3rd piece. Then the second one is the same construction, but this is to put a plyboard on the front of it. So this could be like a 2 or 3 mil plyboard. That's great for if you want to keep painting it. You can paint fabric, obviously. The other one could be canvas, but you need to prime it first. But this one will be a plyboard that you can just paint over the top of it. On my TikTok video, if anyone's seen that, like you can see the plyboard is distorted. It's just the more that you paint it, the more it will bend away if it's like really thin. So like 2 mil, 3 mil, so on, that might distort more than like a 5 mil would be. I've turned it red just to indicate this is some kind of fixed material. So like I said, it's like a plyboard or chipboard. You want basically like a combination of the most lightweight you can get, but also something that won't bend or warp. Also, if you can't say like take an 8x4 into your car or whatever, you could obviously get 2 pieces that are cut in half, and then you just have to fill the gap. Like if you want it super smooth, like any kind of like poly filler, wood filler or whatever, you could fill that gap in the middle. So in theory, like looking at the back of it, the 2 front pieces would come up to the center part. So they would be like 2 4-foot by 4-foot squares. So here you would put the screws in. I always put 2 screws in at an angle so the centerpiece doesn't rotate. Because if you just have one, it might twist when you are picking it up. And then we go to the top. Again, I would put screws in here for the angles of the corner. If you want to measure the angle of the corner, then just roughly get your piece, lay it over the vertical and just draw off what the angle of that line is going to be. So you're drawing down there and that's your cut line, assuming that was a longer piece at the beginning. Again, like you're not making like a piece of furniture here, so it doesn't matter if your angles are not perfect. As long as it butts in and it's kind of square, you can have a right angle. That would be super helpful. And then we're going to move to this next one. And the reason I put like a different shade of wood on this is just to show you this could be a heavier piece. So let's say it starts off at like 5 mil, you could have it a lot thicker, and we'll see at the back when I spin this round. Yeah, we'll see on the back with this that I've changed the setup. So instead of one centerpiece now, I've got back pieces that are each third. It's just a little bit more secure. It's going to stop the frame from warping if there's any like risk of it warping. And what you could do with this, you don't necessarily need that carrying piece in the center. So those cross pieces, you can see in this version, those cross pieces are the same width as the verticals, so they go flush. Yeah, with this front face, I'm just turning like a yellow now, again, just to kind of show you it's a different piece. You can put different thickness on here. The thicker that wood is, the heavier it's going to be to hold and lift, but the more it will be able to support weight if you secured it properly. Let's say you're making a wall that you want it to look like an interior of a house. You could put like a skirting board or coving or something on that as well, and you can easily screw it into a thicker board. The thinnest board normally I only use for like painted or putting like wallpaper on or something like that. So now I've made it a thicker board on here. So let's say I want to attach like part of a fireplace to it. Maybe a fireplace would be freestanding, but you get the idea, like a piece of a window. You can also cut out this board. So like, yeah, if you want a window and you want, say, like to push a light from behind, you could just cut out a section of that front board. It's also good to have a different number of like fascias so you can swap them out and take them between frames. So like, yeah, you could cut out something there and say, I want like a Petra Collins window. And then this final one, so we've got lightweight, midweight, heavyweight, and then this final board here, this is much more if we're constructing like big walls. You maybe don't need necessarily that full back frame to it, but it depends like what you're using with this. So it just helps it keep more secure. It gives you more fixing points for the front board as well, so nothing will come away. And you could put a much heavier board on the front of this. You would need probably a bigger foot for this, but you would probably also then be screwing flats together. So you wouldn't just have like one freestanding one of these really. So let's say, okay, we've got like a 10 mil front board on that. Then you could support a fair bit of weight on there, and you would fit several of these flats together, and you could just screw them in the side. The other thing I've done with this, I'm going to pull out the edge of the frame. So you can see here, I'm just pulling it out slightly. That's to show you, maybe you want an overlap sometimes. So you want your front boards to really fit well against each other. Then you can have an overlap on one frame and not on the other. And you can just butt them up really smoothly next to each other. This is kind of getting a little bit more elaborate. Like if you're just watching how to construct these, you would start with the basic and then you'll begin to kind of figure these things out. But just offsetting means that sometimes if your frame distorts, you still get a flush finish on the front. And yeah, you would offset the other side. And again, yeah, more cross pieces on the back. It just makes it more secure. You don't have to go to that level if you're not making a heavy board. And I think once you get to this point, like you've got to consider like safety. You've got to make sure your boards don't fall over. Maybe you need someone that has some kind of more woodworking skills to get this done. But like I've made flats like this and they're fine. And this is an exploded 3D of it just to show you the basics of the pieces that you need. So we've got like the floor mount for it, which again, I would put like a weight bag, several weight bags on it, or a tub of paint. There's always a tub of paint in the studio. The red piece that I'm showing at the bottom here, I always have this as the longer edge of the two between the vertical and then horizontal. Because if you've got the vertical as its longest edge, if someone is dragging this across the studio floor, which happens quite a lot, then if it's the vertical that's longest, it can catch and the vertical can snap or twist out of shape. But if it's the horizontal that's the longest, it gives it kind of an edge to like skate along the floor on. Ideally, you pick your flats up, right? But people get lazy or they shift them into position. It just means you're not putting loads of extra wear and tear on the vertical. I think I've cut to like a drawing. Let me just see where the drawing comes up in a second. Yeah, so here I got some basic measurements. So I've got like 1220 by 2440, that's in millimeters. In feet, it's like 8 foot by 4 foot. That would be the size of the frame. That'd also be the size of the front board. And yeah, you want to work like your frame to whatever your standard measurement is for the front board. I'm not going to put like a 3D that you can download for this because again, you just got to go to like your local DIY store and see what materials that you have there. So yeah, I think that's kind of useful. There's a short version also on my TikTok that shows like some of my studio flats. They're a bit like messy, but it doesn't matter. Like I said, you're not making like a beautiful piece of furniture. You're just making something that you can throw up quickly and then move away. And flats will take a lot of battering, that's fine. You just always want to make sure it's secure, that it's fixed to something, or it's freestanding securely with some kind of weight on it. and that whatever's on the front is not going to come off. Just always remember, you've got to protect your talent, and you never want a piece of the set falling down on anyone. If you've got questions, you can throw them into the comments, and I'm sure other people will also chip in. There are other videos on YouTube, obviously, about this, but this is what works for me, and I thought I would just put this up because a few people asked. I have more videos coming soon, by the way.